In 1993, a buyer could purchase a brand new McLaren F1 for just under $1 million. Most assumed it would depreciate instantly, like any luxury commodity. Fast forward to recent auction cycles, and that exact car routinely crosses the block for over $25 million. A single automotive purchase did not just outperform traditional market indexes over 3 decades. It generated a historic multi-million-dollar windfall, proving how rare mechanical engineering holds immense value for patient collectors. This is not an isolated stroke of luck. Hidden inside unassuming suburban garages and climate-controlled warehouses across America, a select group of vehicles is quietly holding immense historical value. The global automotive market has undergone a structural transformation. Cars are no longer just tools for transportation or symbols of fleeting vanity. For a specific class of vehicles, they have morphed into a highly sought-after alternative heritage segment, moving in tandem with high-end real estate and fine art. The drivers of this historic valuation curve are predictable once you understand the economic forces of generational demand and fixed supply. Consider what happened to a completely different class of vehicle that an untrained eye would mistake for a regular, decades-old commuter sedan. In the late 1990s, the Nissan Skyline GT-R or 34 was forbidden fruit for American enthusiasts. It cost roughly $45,000 new in Japan. Because of strict United States import laws, everyday Americans could not legally drive one on public roads. The moment those cars hit the 25-year safety exemption mark, the collector landscape completely changed. Wealthy individuals who grew up watching these cars in movies and video games suddenly had the disposable capital to acquire the real thing. Today, pristine examples of the R34 GTR regularly command well over $500,000, with rare additions touching 7 figures. A car that once sat in regular municipal parking lots is now worth more than a luxury condo in downtown Miami. A nearly identical phenomenon occurred with the Toyota Supra Mark IV. In 1994, you could buy a twin-turbo Supra for around $40,000. It was fundamentally a mass-market Japanese touring coupe. For years, these vehicles were heavily modified, raced, and often lost to accidents. That organic wear and tear created a massive supply vacuum over time. Today, an all-original, low-mileage Supra Mark IV is an absolute unicorn. Collectors happily cut checks for $200,000 just to park an untouched piece of 1990s cultural nostalgia in a private collection. This brings us to a critical economic truth. The most explosive long-term value retention does not always come from the flashiest hypercars of the current era. It comes from vehicles that capture the precise intersection of emerging demographic, purchasing power, and extreme physical scarcity. There is an even more dramatic example of this valuation curve unfolding today, involving a rare European machine that sat forgotten for decades. We will look at that exact discovery in just a moment. To understand why these valuations remain so resilient, we have to look at the transition from analog engineering to digital isolation. We are currently living through the complete evolution of the mechanical automobile. New sports cars are essentially rolling smartphones. They are packed with driving assists, digital screens, hybrid batteries, and simulated exhaust notes. They are highly efficient, but for many purists, they feel emotionally hollow. Experienced collectors are willing to pay a massive premium for visceral, purely mechanical feedback. They want the sensory experience of a naturally aspirated engine, a precise manual gearbox, and a chassis that communicates directly through the steering wheel without digital filtering. This massive emotional deficit has turned the final generation of analog sports cars into irreplaceable historical artifacts. Take the Porsche 911 Carrera RS 2.7 from 1973. It was built as a homologation special, meaning Porsche only produced a limited run to qualify the model for professional racing. It was loud, stripped of basic cabin comforts, and cost around $10,000 new. For decades, it was just viewed as a noisy, dated sports car. Eventually, the collector community realized that the industry would never build something so raw, lightweight and mechanical ever again. Today, acquiring a well-preserved example requires a budget approaching $1 million. The exact same underlying mechanic drove the valuation of the air-cooled Porsche 993 Turbo S from the late 1990s. It represented the absolute end of an era, the final iteration of Porsche's legendary air-cooled engine legacy. Owners who held on to those specific models through the market fluctuations of the early 2000s eventually found themselves holding $500,000 assets the moment the broader collector market fully realized what had been permanently lost to history. This baseline scarcity creates a unique psychological reality for ultra-high net worth individuals. If you have the capital today, you can easily walk into a modern showroom and order the latest high-performance exotic. But you cannot manufacture history, and you cannot manufacture time. That reality leads to the rare phenomenon of the historic barn find, which represents the ultimate treasure hunt in the automotive world. A prime example occurred when a dusty, neglected 1961 Ferrari 250 GT short wheelbase California Spider was discovered under a mountain of old sports equipment and cardboard boxes on a historic French estate. It had been sitting completely untouched for decades, entirely forgotten by the modern world. At auction, despite the heavy layer of dust and faded paint, it fetched a record-breaking price of over $18 million. The estate heirs had no idea they were sleeping mere feet away from a massive historical asset. The sheer scale of these historic market trends has fundamentally changed how collectors view their garages. A highly curated vehicle collection is no longer viewed as a depreciating luxury hobby. It is increasingly treated as a stable, tangible alternative asset class. While multi-million-dollar Ferraris and McLarens capture the media headlines, the real secret to tracking this market lies in identifying vehicles currently sitting at the absolute bottom of their depreciation curves. Every legendary collector car went through a temporary period where it was simply considered an old, out-of-style used vehicle. In the modern collector ecosystem, a specific group of early 2000s analog exotics is quietly transitioning from used transport to blue-chip historical art. Platforms featuring gated manual transmissions, mechanical V10 or V12 engines, and minimal digital driver aids are being steadily acquired by long-term preservationists who see the direction of the industry. They recognize that the global regulatory and manufacturing environment makes it practically impossible for major brands to ever mass-produce these kinds of mechanical platforms again. When the global supply of a historical machine is permanently capped at zero, an organic demand from an aging, nostalgic demographic continues to scale. Price is no longer dictated by mere utility. It is dictated entirely by cultural desire. The individuals who preserved these vehicles did not view them as simple transportation. They recognized them as absolute high-water marks of engineering freedom. They understood that a machine built with total design liberty, completely unburdened by modern corporate committees or regulatory constraints, is a piece of fine kinetic art. By preserving them when the rest of the world was focused on the next new trend, they allowed the simple, unstoppable forces of nostalgia and mathematical scarcity to build immense value over time.